In her address, the President calls for Singaporeans to walk alongside fourth-generation leaders in partnership to achieve an exceptional Singapore. The concept of partnership means that there are more than one person in this journey. Partners bring to the table their contributions, their strengths, their capital. They have different roles and responsibilities. They have a single commitment, but they also bear risks together. That is the concept of a partnership. And that is what we need to bear in mind when we build our country. The premise of partnership is trust. And in this debate, in my speech, I would want to focus on the issue of trust. The debate is important because the President's speech is not only for the second session of the 13th Parliament. It is a call to Singaporeans to take Singapore forward beyond the 13th Parliament and way into the future. This debate is important because it takes place at a significant juncture in the political history of Singapore. Both the ruling party and the leading opposition party are undergoing leadership transition. The issue of trust is critical to all of us. We are blessed to be in a country where the ruling party and the leading opposition party transit leadership in a managed process, and that is not to be taken for granted. But however well managed, there will be concerns, uncertainties, and fears on the ground. Leadership transition can be reasonably expected to be a time of vulnerability. Such vulnerability is easily exploited and can be exacerbated by circumstances such as we are in now. Shifts in alliances between countries, changes in domestic landscape, disruption in the global economy, security threats. So understandably, citizens like myself are concerned as to where and how the fourth-generation leaders will lead us, how the leading opposition party will play its role as a check and balance vis-à-vis the government. As Singaporeans, we have a stake in Singapore's future. Visions, plans, and policies are important, but just as important, if not more, is whether and how the leaders actualize them. Checks and balances vis-à-vis the government are important, but just as important, if not more, is whether the checks and balances are executed in a constructive and pro-Singapore manner. In other words, whether you are the ruling party or the opposition party, we, the citizen, will watch how responsible you are to Singapore. The fourth-generation leaders clearly acknowledged in the President's speech that they must earn the trust of the people, forge their own bonds afresh with the people, earn the right to lead. I believe this applies to all leaders, even those who have been leaders for a long time. The mandate of the people is given only once at every general elections. That mandate, in my view, entitles the winning party to form the government, but it does not give the winning party the right to lead. That right must be earned, no matter how long you have been in Parliament, and it must continue to be earned. So I am encouraged by the acknowledgement of the fourth-generation leaders that they must earn the trust of the people and forge their own bonds afresh and earn the right to lead. They, having thus spoken, the citizens will wait and see. It is all about words and actions. We weigh the actions of the leaders against their words. We weigh their words against their actions. The words that precede the action, the words that accompany the action, the words subsequent to the action. The nuances, the shades. We watch other actions, hear other words. The totality will be the basis upon which we make our assessment. I will do the same for opposition politicians and the public service. I want to know if you mean what you say and you say what you mean. The fourth-generation leaders and the new leaders of the Workers' Party are not strangers to Singaporeans. But compared to their predecessors, they have had a relatively short time up to now to prove themselves. They have clearly proven themselves within their parties. It is now time to prove themselves to Singaporeans. And this is not going to be easy. You have heard different discordant noises on the ground. Some may be justified and some not. But all must be taken seriously because all emanate from hearts either of anguish or of passion for Singapore. So the issue of earning trust is fundamental. And I believe that is why the fourth generation leaders say they've got to earn that trust. Because if I trust my leaders, no matter how vehemently we disagree, I will cast my lot with them. I will pay the price together with my fellow Singaporeans and leaders to pave the way for Singapore. But if I do not trust my leaders, they have lost me in the journey. Building trust, however, is not a one-way effort. It requires one party to reach out and another to engage. It will be a long and difficult process, especially if impressions have been formed, assessments have already been made, rightly or wrongly. So we will need a lot of empathy and open-mindedness from both parties. We should not fear to speak and debate openly and frankly. We should speak and debate with cold logic, but with a flaming passion for Singapore. Neither government nor citizen should fear criticism. It is healthy, but it must be done responsibly. Let us be open with each other, and only then will our enemies have one tool less against us. The way ahead will be difficult, there is no doubt. In tackling challenges and building our future, the element of trust is important. There will be differing views, strong voices, loud voices. From this tumult, our leaders must discern what is in the long-term interests of Singapore while looking after the immediate and medium-term interests of Singapore. So you have said to us that you will demonstrate leadership and resolve. You will stand firm on principles and ideals while seeking practical solutions. You will listen to the people. You will not fear to mobilize public opinion in the long-term interest of Singapore. And indeed, as a citizen, I expect no less of Singapore's leaders and public service to do that which is right by Singapore, boldly but humbly, never fearing those who speak the loudest or those who wield the most power, making difficult decisions in the long-term interests of Singapore. But how will you communicate with us? How will you know that I believe in you? How will you know that when you make that decision, that difficult decision, which I disagree with, that you will have me on your bandwagon? It is for you to reach out to me, and it is for me to open my mind to what you have to say to me. Besides courage and principle, I and many I know will throw our lot in with leaders who uphold universal values of compassion, integrity, and loyalty. As a citizen, I will trust leaders who defend our Constitution and the sovereignty of Singapore, putting at all times the interests of Singapore above all. I trust leaders who exercise righteousness, dispense justice and equity, uphold the rule of law. I trust leaders who protect the people, who remember the poor and vulnerable, who grow the country economically, socially, for all, who lead us and who are above corruption. In my sharing of my aspirations of leaders, I have steered clear of what policies and schemes we should have. These have already been greatly discussed, and I leave to better minds than mine. But for me, the element of trust, if you cannot build that, you have lost us. The President also speaks about trust between the people. This is the second premise of the partnership, between people and people. If we do not have trust, we cannot be united. If we cannot be united as one people, we do not require another enemy. We are our own enemy. Deliberate government policies such as universal education, national service, mixed housing, meritocracy have resulted in significant socio-economic progress and social mobility for Singaporeans. We have done well compared to many countries. And notwithstanding, Singaporeans have not become homogeneous. But why should we be? In the midst of our progress, we continue to carry with us differences in background, abilities, ideologies, culture, race, and religion. Justifiably so. These are a part of our identity as individuals, a part of our heritage. We are indeed different from each other, but we must not be afraid that we are different. We recognize that our differences have enriched the Singaporean fabric. Our differences have made us more accepting, broadened our perspectives, made us better, made us stronger. Mr. Speaker, many honorable members and ministers have reminded us of our differences and that we are not yet equal. As such, the same differences that have strengthened and enriched Singapore can potentially tear us apart. But we must not let that happen. Consciously, we must use our differences to strengthen our society. When I have ability, I uphold and I lift the person without the ability, the person with the disability. When I have resources, I share my resources to level the playing ground. If I am weak, I look to someone who is strong to support me. If I am strong, I share my strength with my brother. Let us not allow anyone to attempt to fracture our society. Let us not coalesce according to social economic status, race, culture, or religion. And we must never, never, never allow distrust to engender along these differences. There is so much that we have to do together as a people. It isn't just the work of certain agencies or certain companies, but it is the work of every person. So much that we need to do, no time to fight. We must put aside prejudices. We must put aside snide remarks and insinuations. So much to do. Can we construct and not destruct? After all, we have a precious common history, and we will have a precious and common destiny. We have gone through thick and thin together. The Japanese War, riots, acts and attempted acts of terror, financial crisis, SARS. We fought together, cried together, worked together, grew together. Will we throw that away? Will we throw that away at insinuations from people who may not even have any stake in our country? Would we throw that away when just by listening to others and being persuaded without much thinking? We are proud to be Singaporean, and we should be. We are proud of our sons and daughters regardless of their achievements. We nurture them. We empower our workers, employers, persons with disabilities. We celebrate successes of Singaporeans together. We grieve with fellow Singaporeans when their sons suffer mishaps in the service of the nation. We grieve with fellow Singaporeans when their family members suffer mishaps, whether in Singapore or overseas. We call for the government to protect Singaporeans who are vulnerable. We stand together against crime. We stand together against terrorism. Do we want to throw that away? We have too much at stake. Even in situations of terror, where our own people act or attempt to act against our country, we will stand with all Singaporeans, regardless of race, language, or religion. We will be united against evil and terror. As our forefathers and founding fathers protected Singapore for us, we will protect Singapore for our children. Why is trust so important? Without that, our society falls apart. No trust in the government, no trust in each other. We are Singaporean. We will determine our own destiny. We will listen to the views of others about Singapore. We will discern. We will improve, but we will not bow to criticisms by persons who have no stake in our country. Whatever their motives, however noble their motives, we are the ones who determine our destiny. And this, we must be clear. We must not allow others to influence our destiny. Will we take charge? Will we? And we should. We are Singaporean. Whether we live or die, wherever we live or die, we are Singaporean. And if we die in a foreign land, there will be that corner of a foreign field that will forever be Singapore. Majulah Singapura.